Okay, we're going to now go to our next speaker, who is Linda Blade. She's a former national champion of Canada in track and field, heptathlon. She's got a PhD in kinesiology, and for the past 26 years has run a private consulting business as sport performance professional coach in Edmonton, Alberta, working with athletes in over 15 sports, beginner to elite. Since 2014, Linda has also served as president of the board for Athletics Alberta, where she has a duty to represent the province of Alberta at Canadian national sport policy meetings. In a bid to increase public awareness of threats posed by gender ideology, Linda has partnered with the journalist Barbara Kay to author a new book, which is not quite so new now, but it's still fantastic, titled Unsporting: How Trans Activism and Science Denial Are Destroying Sport. So Linda is also the country contact for Canada for WDI. And thank you so much for joining us, Linda, and over to you to do your talk.
In early May, I stepped down as president of Athletics Alberta after 9 years, and I should have corrected that on your bio there, Joe. I'm sorry. But anyway, it was time to move on. Normally, presidents of the association only last about 6 years, and then I was going to step down before COVID, and then the complexity of COVID compelled me to stay on and help the association through that point. But yes, I am now no longer president, but during that time we established a very strong sex-based policy for eligibility in sport, and so I feel like we were pretty safe in terms of me stepping aside and having someone else step in. And so, yeah, it's going well in terms of that particular association. Now, I need to quickly get into my presentation because there is so much that's been happening. This is an update because you've probably seen, if you were at the presentation I did in February, this was the same image you would have seen back then. And I was introducing a new international group, an umbrella group of different organizations who are advocating for women's sex-based rights in sports. The reason we set this up was because the background quickly was just that there was nobody at the negotiating table at the Olympic Committee level. At the international level, it was only consulting, these organizations were only consulting trans activists. There were no women advocating for the 50% of the global population who happen to be women and girls. And we realized if the guy at the top of the IOC just went down the hall and got his secretary, and like, who represents the female voice? We realized we had to collaborate in a very similar fashion to the Women's Declaration, actually, to actually have a collective that we could claim to be the women's voice in sport. So this is our web page, if you're interested in looking at it. ICFS, International Consortium on Female Sport.org. And we definitely align with Women's Declaration, Article 7, reaffirming women's rights to same opportunities as men to participate actively in sports and physical education. So we are completely aligned with Women's Declaration. So this is what our site looks like. Our founding principle: fairness and safety for female athletes in sport is ensured by having a dedicated category for those born female. You can have all kinds of other categories in sport, but you have to have one that's female only. So our purpose is to serve as the key international lobby group to advocate for the preservation of female sports categories. So wherever it's necessary to send one of our representatives to a meeting internationally, nationally, to represent women and girls who are too afraid to speak, that's where we want to be. So this was our launch in January 2023. And again, this is one of the posters. And we have two types of memberships. We have core members and we have affiliate members. I'll get to the affiliate membership at the end just to explain a little bit about that, because every one of you can be an affiliate member. The core members come from the following 10 countries: USA, UK, Spain, Canada, France, Australia, New Zealand, Mexico, El Salvador, and most recently, we have had the Countess join us from Ireland. We are so happy and pleased to have the Countess join us. So one of our first acts as an ICFS organization was to join Icons Women at the NCAA rally at the NCAA convention in Texas. And this is a video, and we're going to play it, of Riley Gaines serving notice to the NCAA officials that there could be litigation if they don't change their policy on Leah Thomas and that sort of thing. We all stood together, marched down the sidewalk, and served NCAA officials with a warning that if they continue to promote sex discrimination against women and girls in sport, there will be legal action. We have had lots of different types of advocacy on social media. We've been exposing the nonsense. Again, in January and February, we came across the gentleman in the middle in the black jersey, Tiffany Newell, who was running and setting masters records. You see on the far left, there's a masters record that listed for Tiffany Newell as, champion. It was just so crazy. And so we profiled that on our ICFS site. It was actually went quite viral. And I think since that point, Tiffany Newell became aware that women were upset. So he actually stepped aside. He doesn't compete there anymore. So that was pretty successful in my opinion. At the top, you just see various examples. Like at the top, you have this Valentino Petrillo gentleman who's in the visually impaired women's masters races. Of course, in the middle there, it's just Italian women. I don't know why they're posing with him, but anyway. And then we have, other people now that we exist. We like the Lobos race in Mexico. The person standing on second position is a male in the women's cycling race. Cycling is pathetic. They have so many men in women's cycling. It's crazy. And so we are, by existing, we're getting a lot of information, I guess, about where the men are coming into the women's sports. And we do letters, like we've written so many different letters to organizations, and it's posted on our site under media. You can see the letter to the ICU, the International Cycling Union. Lately, there was one, the most recent letter was to the hang gliding and paragliding. There, they even have sort of a gender neutral category, alternative trans category, and yet males still come into the women's competition. It's crazy. And so World Athletics, we've sent a letter. This was back in January as well. I was so pleased. All of us, of course, celebrated when World Athletics put out their policy and at the end of March, saying that there is the female category, women's category is female only at the high performance level. Of course, in Canada, we still have to deal with grassroots level and what's happening there. And there's many terrible things going on. But anyway, so you can see that we have been engaged in letters to organizations, a lot of them open. The last image down below with the weightlifter, this is a special case. This was the first active Canadian female athlete April Hutchinson, competes for the Canadian Powerlifting Union. And she approached Icons Women in the States saying, my organization association allows a man to compete in the women's category. And then since Icons is under the umbrella of ICFS, they also shared it around. And I found out as a Canadian, I was happy to see an athlete speaking out. So we decided we would help April because April had been depressed about this for some time and didn't know what to do. And so she came and we started advocating on her behalf through the ICFS. And then what we decided to do, we found out that the powerlifting, and just for context, powerlifting is one of those sports, because of the strength and weightlifting, where it's the most difference between men and women. So it's even the most absurd that a male should be in the women's section. So we did a protest in February 16th. It was the national championships, happened to be in Richmond, British Columbia, near Vancouver. And so I just put out there that we were going to show up. We first thought we'd do a sidewalk protest. And I thought, well, why would we do that? Why don't we just go in and have the XY doesn't equal XX on the front of our jerseys and our ICFS logo on the back of our jerseys, and just cheer for the women who are in the competition and have to endure competing against a male athlete. So we just thought we would clap for the women, be polite, but we'd clap for the women. And then when the male athlete is on the podium, we'd stand and turn our backs and they would see our logo. So we just were in the room. Basically, we paid our admission to go and cheer on the women. And then here's what happened next. There's a series of videos, so I'll take you through it. So listen, if you can, to the audio here.
Here we have a man in the women's category. Look at all these.
You can hear cheer, boo. Most of them were cheering for him, though. Just by showing up and being cheering, you know, like anybody else. And of course, some of us were saying boo, but just because we were there, then the competition organizer and president of the ICFS tried to.
Here we have a man in the
tried to kick us out. So here's Christine. Christine's on the call right now. Christine Lills. Anyway, I'm going to show you the video where they were trying to kick us out.
No? Okay.
Listen, I have an ICMP officer who said if there's trouble, I should call her. So I'll call her.
What are you calling the police for? We're respectfully here, cheering for women.
This is a private event. You guys
paid to get in here.
That's correct. And that admission is revoked. This is supposed to be a safe
We are
space.
cheering for women. It is safe. How are we making it unsafe? Can you tell me how you're making it?
All right. And so that didn't work. So then they got the hotel manager, because this was a platform and a conference room in a hotel. So they got the Sheraton manager to try to kick us out.
So if you're refusing to leave, then I just do want you to know that we're going to have to take it to another step. But I'm formally letting you know that
Samuel St. Pierre, 644 pounds. Wicklow St. Pierre.
We're here cheering for women.
After him comes Fish.
I'm just letting you know, if you're not willing to come, then I will have to go to the next level. Okay? So I'm just letting you know. So you're refusing to leave, correct?
We are here cheering for women. We paid to get in just like everybody else.
Okay. So you're refusing to
Ladies and gentlemen,
Why should we have to leave? Tell me what the reason is we need to
to
leave.
Vancouver, the
What's the
very
reason?
last city of powerlifting, where the grass is
What? We
green.
paid to get in. We didn't.
Police officers outside.
Cheering. If you don't have a reason, what would the RCMP be here for?
You're on my property. I can ask.
Okay, I paid to get in. So what's the reason?
413.4.
That's not a reason.
Jacob.
These people have signs. Those people have signs. These people are cheering. So are we.
7 for Jacob.
Thank you. I just.
So of course that went so viral, because thanks to Marshy Smith, who put it on I think it was Icon's Women site, and people were retweeting a lot, of course, and it was so obvious that somehow we're not allowed to be in there cheering for our fellow female competitors, fellow female, persons in sport, and yet everybody else can be cheering on a male without any trouble whatsoever. That was very revealing to us. In fact, it was just so big news that it's, I thought, initially I just thought we'd show up and sit there and nobody would notice, but these people made our moment. So we were interviewed the first time about this on CBC National News. So that sort of did make way. Okay, so then we have other things going on. We have, because we are an umbrella group, this was a beautiful moment in early May, where our Spanish-speaking colleagues, Irene Aguiar from Spain, who's in the dark jacket on the right, on the left of the picture, but on our right, and then Rebecca Sanchez from El Salvador, the two members of ICFS under the umbrella, got together in El Salvador, and Irene talked to a whole group of people about what's happening in sport and what's going on. And it just made me happy to see two of our members getting together in the Latin American world. And, you know, I must say, I mean, we have Contraborado from Spain as the under umbrella, but we have also this Irene Aguiar is a lawyer, a sports lawyer. And I mean, she has just done such amazing work in calling out these males. And there's, you know, Austin Killips in the middle there. And just the situation, I've said it before, at UCI is just ridiculous. But I mean, it's we're all doing the best we can to call things out and to bring it to people's attention. And on that note, we have a conference coming up in Denver in July, July 21 to 23. But Icons Women, again, the group under our umbrella, the ICFS umbrella, one of the American groups is hosting this. And of course, you can see that we're a co-sponsorship of this event. And there's just so many great speakers. Look at that. We've got Dr. Emma Hilton coming. We've got so many. I mean, this list of speakers is unbelievable. And we're just looking forward to it. And yeah, it's fantastic. And now I'm going to go into something absolutely completely different of something I've been trying on the women's sports and women's sex-based rights. I just want to update you because it does impact sport, and I'm trying something differently here. Okay, so what happened was in Canada, the ruling the ruling parties are the Liberal Party supported by the New Democrats. And there's just no way. It's so frustrating. After 5 years of being in this and speaking out about it, it's just hard to make progress. And the problem is always because the Canadian law is so ridiculous. I mean, at least in the UK, when you had the Equalities Act, you had sex-based exemptions. But in Canada, there was no such thing when Bill C-16 came in with Justin Trudeau. And Justin Trudeau and the NDPs, the coalition of the left-wing parties are just hopeless. So the only way to move the needle possibly, I felt, was to engage in the Conservative Party. And I knew that the Conservative Party of Canada has a convention on policies every 4 years. And I knew 2023 would be another year for their policy. So I engaged in the fall of 2022. Yeah, this past about 8 months ago into my local riding to see if I could get on the policy committee and try to put in a new policy that protects women and girls. And so they have this thing called, it's great. And the one thing I appreciate about the party is that there's this grassroots process where you have to become a policy chair, a delegate, and then you have the password to the Ideas Lab where you can put in, there's 150 submissions from across the country on how to improve the party platform. And we're limited to 50 words. So my modification of the women on the policy on women policy, my submission is 999. So basically, and I was very limited, like the underlined part is what I have to add to the platform. And so basically, you can see there that I'm trying, in very brief words, trying to say what we mean by women. And of course, people have to agree. People have to agree to within the party what you're saying. And there was a lot of worry. So what I've said is this: for clarity, the term woman used throughout this Conservative Party policy declaration means female person. The Conservative Party of Canada believes that women are entitled to safety, dignity, and privacy of single-sex spaces, example, prisons, shelters, locker rooms, washrooms, and the benefit of women-only categories, example, sports, awards, grants, and scholarships. Now, some of the top brass in the Conservative Party, of course, are extremely worried about this because they think that the party will be labeled transphobic. And part of the stress testing of new ideas within the party is that you have to have at least 3 co-sponsorships. I had to get 3 co-sponsorships, which are really hard to get, from across the country by June 15th. So by a week ago, I had to have at least 3 co-sponsorships. But if you look at the co-sponsorships, I have 8 co-sponsorships. So I'm one of the top policies in terms of the support and co-sponsorship. So it's Kitchener Center, Kitchener-Conestoga, Vaughan Woodbridge, Vancouver South. So all these different ridings supported this policy submission. And that's not the end. That only goes through to a voting stage. And then we get to the convention in Quebec City in early September. And then I have to fight to be the top 30 in the country, top 30 policies that are to be inserted into the Conservative Party platform. I can say as of yesterday or the day before yesterday that my policy 999, protecting female sports, intimate spaces of women's rights, qualifies for voting in the convention. And basically, it is because I have 8 co-sponsorships. I'm in the top 15 out of 150 policy submissions, which is encouraging only in the sense that it shows us that at the grassroots level, people in Canada really, really do support us. They want to see a movement on this. Despite what the party brass is worried about, it's going to be an interesting thing to see what happens with this. But wish me luck. That's just a little bit of a side project, but it could be really big because if this party gets into power, they're probably going to be willing to amend the Bill C-16 to have sex-based rights. So the ICFS is really growing. We now have up to 500, some maybe 2 members short of 500 affiliate members. How do you become an affiliate member? So you basically go to the website where it shows the core members, affiliate members, and you just say, join our community. Give us, so tell us who you are. Give us your email. We'll have Carol talked about creating email lists. Well, this will be a good way if you really want to support women's sports. Contact us, join us. Our ultimate goal would be to have, some numbers, even half the numbers that Women's Declaration would have, just to show the international sports associations that we do speak for women in sport. We are the main voice across the world for women in sports as an organization. Collaboration is the way to go, ladies. And we all know that. If we need to stand together. And this is such a great time in history because never in history have women from all over the world been able to connect on, what is essentially political issues. And so I would just say, tell people if they really want to support, just join us, tell us who you are, maybe donate $1 or $2. But I just want to assure you that there is a ton of things happening. And really with respect to April, when I go back to April, the amount of emails and letters that have gone on behind the scenes trying to convince Canadian Powerlifting Union to be fair to April and her colleagues, her female colleagues, is just unbelievable. We are calling for the International Powerlifting Federation, IPF, to tell Canada if they don't honor and respect female athletes, and if they don't stop discriminating on the basis of sex, the Canadian Powerlifting Union should be kicked out, at least until they align their policies with something a little more sane with the international governing body. And what's happening right now is the international governing body has one set of policies, which makes it very difficult. It's still not perfect, but it requires trans person to declare who they are and have all these mitigations of testosterone, of everything. In Canada, you just go into a competition as a male and just say, today I feel like a woman, and you can compete. And it's just, there's no gatekeeping, and it's unbelievable. So anyway, the fight continues, the struggle goes on, and we will be here. We're here for women in sport. And if we need to advocate on behalf of people, we will do so, especially female athletes who are very frightened, and even coaches, female coaches, and officials, people who are afraid to speak out. We can represent them as a group, and it gives us a certain amount of leverage to be able to do that without putting anybody at risk. So that's the end. Thank you.